Dad refuses to attend my wedding if I invite my mom, who cheated on him, so I'm forced to choose between them. I know my fiancé and I are very young, but we have been together for years and were friends since childhood before we became a couple. Also, hate to say it, but we are religious and it's common in our culture to marry young. We've been through both premarital and financial counseling, so we feel very prepared. Smile anyways. My issue at hand has to do with the wedding. My fiancé, Steve, and I are getting married in 8 months. We don't have a lot of money and honestly neither of us can stand fancy dues, so we are having a very private ceremony with only his best man and my maid of honor as witnesses, and then we are having a tiny reception afterwards with only 50 people total. So obviously this is going to be quite an intimate reception. Here is the thing. My parents can't really stand each other. Or at least my dad can't stand my mom. 5 years ago, in my last year of high school, my mother was caught having an affair with her married coworker. It destroyed my parents' marriage. My father became a changed man. He was always a happy and confident outgoing guy, but he became quiet, withdrawn and just empty. It's killed me seeing him like this. My mother moved out because me and my younger brother, who was 15 at the time, basically told her to GTFO. I have always been close with my mom, loved her to pieces, but finding out about her affair and seeing what it did to my dad, I've always known my dad to adore my mother, nuked my relationship with her. My brother and I went no contact with her for about a year. I finally relented when I sent her an invitation to my high school graduation, but made it clear her partner was not invited. My brother took a little longer to come around, but he talks to her from time to time. Both of us told the judge we wanted to live with our dad full time, which was granted to us. My relationship with my mother is still strained and distant. I know she wants more. She's constantly trying to talk to me, and she sobbed in relief when I sent her my graduation invite after not talking to her for almost a year, but I keep her at arm's length and merely make polite casual conversation now and again. I still love my mother and I don't want to cut her out completely, but this is as close as I want her and I will never again have a close relationship with her. As for her affair partner, apparently they are still together after his wife caught and divorced him. I have never met him and made it clear to my mother I do not want to. If mom and I meet for coffee or anywhere he is not to come, I refuse to see pictures or discuss him with her. If she brings him up, I immediately change the subject. I have no idea if my mom is happy with him, if they doing well, etc. I frankly don't care. As for my father, in a way we are closer, but he clearly has his issues. It's been 5 years and he's clearly not over the cheating and divorce. He's not angry or bitter about it, just very sad and depressed. He won't call my mom or her lover by their names. He calls them he/him and she/her. He hasn't dated once since the divorce either. He won't be around her. For my graduation, they had to be at polar opposite ends of the bleachers and I had to have my phone on me so I could text my mom when she was allowed to approach and congratulate me, and then so I could text my dad to let him know my mom left. It will be this way when I graduate college as well. So, my question goes to my wedding. After I told my dad what Steve and I had planned for our wedding and reception, he got very quiet and asked if I planned on inviting her and him. I said yes, I would probably invite my mom even though her partner is not invited. My dad quietly said it's rude to only invite one half of a couple. He then said he didn't think he could come if she was going to be there. That maybe he could be there before or after she comes, but he just doesn't think he could interact with her in such a close setting. I was floored and very hurt. I told my dad I would think about it. Steve and I need to start sending out save the dates pretty soon, so we need to get this resolved. I've talked about this with Steve, and while he is very sweet and says he will fully support me no matter what decision I make, that I'm the only one who can make this choice. I also talked to my brother about it and he says he will show up no matter what, but he won't have much to do with our mother, if she's invited, beyond basic courtesies, and that he understands dad's position but thinks he's being kind of ridiculous. He also said technically it's rude to not invite her boyfriend, but it's also pretty rude to destroy 2 families by having an affair with another married man so her boyfriend can go fuck himself and mother can shove wedding etiquette up her ass. Personally, he'd prefer I not invite her either, but it's my wedding and I can do what I want and he will roll with it. My brother is a very blunt man and has not been as forgiving of the affair as I have. So now I'm stuck. On the one hand, if we are being honest, I really do want to invite my mother to my wedding reception. I absolutely will not invite her boyfriend regardless of how tacky it seems. He is not and will never be a part of our family. And honestly, I'm kind of angry with my dad. Believe me, I understand his pain and hurt, but it's been 5 years and I think he needs to start moving on. It's fine if he doesn't like mom. I don't much like her either, but to boycott my own wedding because she might be coming? Get over yourself. It's like his hurt feelings are more important than his only daughter's wedding. He really can't suck it up and just be in a reception hall with her for a few hours? On the other, I really love my dad. I hate seeing him hurt, I can't stand causing him pain. If I absolutely have to choose between my 2 parents, I will pick my father every time. Despite him being kind of a wet blanket about the wedding, he's a good man with a good heart. My dad and I are very close and I don't want to jeopardize my relationship with him, and I would much rather he be at my wedding than my mother. Plus I'm thinking since I refused to invite my mom's boyfriend and it really is considered a wedding faux pas, I just shouldn't invite her altogether. I really don't want my dad to not come. But, despite how my mom and I are not and will never be close again and how I think she's getting her just desserts for having an affair, I don't want to hurt her by not inviting her altogether. I'm well and truly stuck. I don't know what to do, and honestly I've broken down crying over this a few times because it's just so stressful and I feel caught in the middle between two people I love. Update 1. I was reading all the comments and the more time went on the more angry and upset I became. People eventually started saying why should parents always have to sacrifice for children. Some said I was being a bridezilla and only caring about my day. Of course I care. It's my wedding. It's supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime event that I want to share with everyone. Many people said my dad had depression and my mother's actions were so evil he was forever off the hook for good. Everyone was giving suggestions on how I could meticulously plan the days to rotate everyone, and I felt like screaming. Steve eventually told me to get off of Reddit because he hated seeing me so upset. I couldn't even say exactly why I was upset. I just was. Steve said maybe I should go back to my old therapist that I had when my parents got divorced and talk it out with her. To me, this seemed like a great idea. I called her up and asked to have an appointment, despite finals being right around the corner. So I went and everything came out. How much I hurt still from what mom did and how we can never be close again. And honestly how angry I am at my father. I never really realized it, but I've gotten so furious and resentful of him. How he never even tried to get out of his funk, how dejected he acted if mom somehow came up, how he never said anything directly bad about her but subtly made me feel so guilty for loving her. Acting mopey, going from fine to depressed if she somehow came up, how I always feel like I have to walk on eggshells around him, and how he gets a free pass because he got cheated on, something that happens to tons of people every day. I talked and talked and talked. I made a couple more appointments. I got through finals. I want to shout out to Steve here. He is the only reason I got through it all, passed, and got my degree. He is an incredible human being. The tipping point was my graduation day. Once again, my father made it clear mom couldn't be sat near him and he couldn't be near her at all. I had to text her when she could come talk to me and had to text him once she left. Her boyfriend was, of course, not invited. But it was so embarrassing having to contact the officials in charge of the ceremony and ask if my tickets could be changed so my parents could sit far away from each other. They were kind and understanding, but that's when I began to get very, very angry. My mom has no problem with my dad. She doesn't mind being near him even though she doesn't love him. I began to think how I'm going to have to rearrange all my milestones. My marriage, when I have children, my children's christenings and birthday parties, etc. Graduation was miserable. I couldn't look in any one direction to see my family as I got my degree and walked the stage because they had to be spread out. I had to make sure my phone was on me and fully charged so I could coordinate my mother and father's locations. It was so awkward mingling with one group and then my mother, knowing both groups were waiting to have their turn. My brother interacted with my mother and he was kind of cold but cordial nonetheless. My mother made no complaints, didn't try to argue or force herself in there, and patiently waited for her turn even though I could tell she was dying to spend more time with me. Pictures had to be rotated. I couldn't have one with all my family in there. My father was constantly texting during my time with her asking if she had left yet and if he could come back now. It seemed so childish. Honestly, the rest of my family could tolerate my mother being around.